Part 1. Diagnosing Burnout, Nietzsche's Perspective. Welcome to Shadow Psychology. You stand at the edge of a revelation that will transform how you understand exhaustion forever. Modern society has normalized burnout as an inevitable price of success. But what if this persistent fatigue is not just physiological exhaustion, but a profound spiritual crisis? While mainstream solutions offer superficial fixes, more sleep, better time management, mindfulness apps, we will explore Nietzsche's dangerous truth. Burnout is the soul's rebellion against a life lived against your deepest nature. Most people experience burnout as overwhelming fatigue, but Nietzsche would recognize it as something far more significant: the conflict between your authentic will to power and the artificial demands of modern society. The constant pressure to perform, achieve, and conform creates what Nietzsche called the spirit of gravity, that heavy weight that crushes your creative energy and leaves you feeling empty. Traditional approaches misunderstand burnout as simply needing more rest, when in reality, you need more authentic expression of your true self. Consider how burnout manifests differently across 3 dimensions. Physical exhaustion is merely the surface symptom, the body's protest against unsustainable rhythms. Mental depletion represents the deeper layer, the mind's rebellion against meaningless tasks and cognitive overload. But the core of true burnout is spiritual emptiness, what Nietzsche described as the great disgust, that profound sense of meaninglessness when you're living according to values that aren't your own. Most treatments address only the physical symptoms, leaving the root cause untouched. Your diagnostic journey begins with this crucial distinction. Are you tired from meaningful struggle or exhausted from artificial demands? Nietzsche's concept of amor fati teaches us that exhaustion from pursuing your true path can be transformative, while fatigue from conforming to external expectations is soul-crushing. The former strengthens your will to power, the latter destroys it. This is why 2 people can work identical hours. One emerges energized, the other burned out. The difference lies not in the effort expended, but in the alignment between action and authentic purpose. Modern work culture has created what Nietzsche would call the last man of productivity. The person who seeks comfort and safety above all else, avoiding anything that might trigger discomfort or require genuine engagement. This avoidance of meaningful challenge paradoxically leads to the most devastating form of burnout: the emptiness of a life lived without passion or purpose. Your fatigue might be trying to tell you something essential about the disconnect between your daily actions and your deepest values. The path to healing begins with recognizing burnout not as your failure to cope, but as your soul's successful rebellion against living falsely. The energy you're losing to resistance and internal conflict could be flowing into creative expression and meaningful work. Your exhaustion is the shadow trying to lead you back to your authentic path, if you have the courage to listen to its message. The common approach medicates symptoms while ignoring causes. We will perform philosophical surgery on the root of your fatigue. If you're ready to stop treating burnout as a medical condition and start recognizing it as spiritual guidance, subscribe now. The transformation from exhausted to energized begins when you stop fighting your fatigue and start understanding its message. Part 2. Amor fati and burnout, loving your exhaustion. The conventional approach to burnout teaches resistance fighting fatigue, pushing through exhaustion, and treating rest as mere recovery for more work. Nietzsche offers a radical alternative: amor fati, the unconditional love of one's fate. Applied to burnout, this means embracing your exhaustion not as an enemy to defeat, but as a necessary teacher guiding you toward a more authentic way of living. Your fatigue carries vital information about misalignments between your actions and your true nature. If you learn to listen to its wisdom rather than silencing its message with stimulants or superficial solutions. Most people approach burnout with what Nietzsche would call slave morality, seeing exhaustion as a weakness to be hidden, a failure to be ashamed of, or a problem to be solved. The sovereign individual recognizes burnout as the natural consequence of violating one's own rhythm and values. When you love your exhaustion through amor fati, you stop asking, "How do I get rid of this fatigue?" and start inquiring, "What is this fatigue trying to show me about how I'm living?" This shift transforms burnout from a pathology into a dialogue with your deepest self. Practice begins with the burnout inventory, a Nietzschean examination of where and why your energy drains. For 1 week, track not just your energy levels, but the specific activities, interactions, and thoughts that deplete you versus those that replenish you. The pattern will reveal where you're betraying your nature. That meeting that leaves you drained for hours, the task you constantly procrastinate, the relationship that exhausts you. These are not random, they're signposts pointing toward misalignments with your will to power. Amor fati means loving these revelations enough to change your life accordingly. The transformation continues with what I call fatigue alchemy, the conscious repurposing of exhaustion as creative fuel. When burnout surfaces, instead of reaching for caffeine or distraction, sit with the sensation. Locate the physical experience of fatigue in your body, the heavy limbs, the foggy mind, the emotional numbness. Breathe into these sensations with curiosity rather than resistance. Ask, if this fatigue had a message about how I need to live differently, what would it say? The answers that emerge often surprise: the need for more meaningful work, clearer boundaries, or courage to pursue neglected passions. Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence provides the ultimate test for burnout prevention. Ask yourself, if I had to live this exact day with this same energy expenditure and recovery pattern for eternity, would I choose it? The visceral answer reveals everything. Most people's burnout stems from repeating days they'd never choose to eternalize. Days filled with tasks that drain rather than fulfill, interactions that diminish rather than enlarge them. Amor fati means designing days worth repeating, where even the challenges serve your growth rather than depleting your spirit. This philosophical approach solves the paradox of modern exhaustion. We're simultaneously overstimulated and underfulfilled. The constant digital noise, social obligations, and performance demands drain energy without providing meaning. Amor fati teaches selective engagement, loving your energy enough to spend it only on what aligns with your deepest values. The solution to burnout isn't necessarily working less, but working differently. Replacing draining obligations with energizing commitments, trading superficial busyness for meaningful progress. The weak see burnout as a system failure. The alchemist sees it as raw material for transformation. Your exhaustion contains the blueprint for a more authentic life, if you love it enough to decode its message. The energy you currently lose to resistance and avoidance could be powering your most meaningful work. Most people medicate their burnout. The sovereign individual learns its language and lets it guide them toward their true path. Part 3. Will to Power as Energy Management. Your exhaustion is not a sign of weakness, but a profound misdirection of your fundamental life force, what Nietzsche called the will to power. Most people experience burnout because they are pouring their precious energy into endeavors that are fundamentally misaligned with their authentic nature. The conventional solution of rest more completely misses the point. True vitality comes not from hoarding energy, but from channeling it toward purposes that resonate with your deepest values. When you engage in work that expresses your true will, you enter a state of flow where energy generates itself, where action and replenishment become one continuous motion. The will to power, properly understood, is not about domination over others, but about achieving such mastery over your own energies that every expenditure becomes an investment in your growth. The modern world systematically disconnects us from our natural energy rhythms, replacing them with artificial stimulants and external validations that create a vicious cycle of depletion. We caffeine ourselves into alertness, sugar ourselves through slumps, and seek validation to momentarily lift our spirits, all while ignoring the fundamental truth that sustainable energy can only come from within. Nietzsche's insight reveals that our exhaustion often stems from internal conflict, the tension between what we truly value and what we feel compelled to do. Each time we betray our authentic desires to meet external expectations, we create psychic friction that drains our vitality. The path to overcoming burnout lies not in better time management or more efficient rest, but in courageously examining where we are violating our own nature and making different choices. Practical energy sovereignty begins with what I call the daily energy audit, a systematic examination of how you invest your life force. For 1 week, maintain a precise log tracking not just your activities, but the qualitative experience of each. Note which tasks leave you feeling expanded and which create contraction, which interactions generate momentum, and which produce resistance. The patterns will reveal with startling clarity where your will to power is being thwarted versus where it finds natural expression. Most people discover that a significant percentage of their energy is being wasted on maintaining appearances, pursuing goals they didn't choose, or engaging in relationships that diminish rather than enhance them. The transformation occurs when you begin treating your energy as your most precious resource, not to be hoarded, but to be invested wisely in enterprises that return meaning and vitality. The ultimate expression of energy mastery comes when you stop asking, "How can I have more energy?" and start commanding, "Where shall I direct the power I possess?" This shift in perspective transforms you from a passive victim of fatigue to an active architect of your vitality. The Nietzschean approach recognizes that some fatigue is noble, the satisfying exhaustion that comes from pursuing your true path, while other exhaustion is degrading, the draining depletion that comes from living falsely. Your energy doesn't need managing in the conventional sense. It needs purposeful expression. When your daily actions become authentic manifestations of your will to power, you discover that the universe conspires to support your endeavors, and what others call burnout becomes for you merely the natural rhythm of engagement and renewal that characterizes a life well lived. Part 4. The Übermensch approach to work-rest balance. The concept of work-life balance has been fundamentally misunderstood by modern culture. We have been taught to see work and rest as opposing forces that must be carefully balanced, as if life were a scale where we must constantly weigh career against leisure. Nietzsche's Übermensch reveals a more profound truth. For the sovereign individual, there is no distinction between work and rest when engaged in purposeful action. What exhausts the ordinary person becomes energizing to those whose labor expresses their deepest values. The separation between work and life is itself the problem, a symptom of the fragmentation that occurs when we compartmentalize our existence into categories that deny our whole being. True balance is not found in allocating time between work and rest, but in achieving such integration between action and identity that every moment becomes an expression of your essential nature. The Übermensch doesn't seek balance through equal distribution of hours, but through complete alignment of activity with purpose. Consider the artist who loses track of time while painting, the scientist who finds meditation in research, the entrepreneur whose strategic planning feels like play. These are not people who have achieved work-life balance, but individuals who have transcended the dichotomy entirely. Their work doesn't drain them because it represents the natural outflow of their being, just as a river flows without exhausting its source. The practical path to this integration requires what Nietzsche called self-overcoming, the continual process of examining and shedding the artificial distinctions that fragment our consciousness. Begin by eliminating the language of separation from your vocabulary. Stop saying, "I need to get away from work," and instead ask, "How can I bring more of myself to every activity?" Transform your approach to both labor and leisure by infusing each with purpose and presence. The modern obsession with productivity has corrupted both work and rest, turning labor into soul-crushing obligation and leisure into compulsive consumption. The sovereign individual reclaims both domains by bringing the same quality of mindful engagement to washing dishes as to strategic planning, to conversation as to creative work. This philosophical shift transforms your relationship with time itself. Where the fragmented person sees life as a pie to be divided, the integrated individual sees it as a continuum to be fully inhabited. Rest becomes not escape from work, but deepening of capacity. Work becomes not avoidance of life, but expression of purpose. The quality of your attention becomes the common thread that weaves together all aspects of your existence. The ultimate achievement is not finding balance between work and life, but realizing there was never a separation to begin with, that the same consciousness flows through all your activities, and the same presence can illuminate every moment. Part 5. Eternal recurrence in daily energy practice. The ultimate Nietzschean test for any life practice is whether you would willingly relive it eternally. This profound philosophical concept transforms from abstract idea to practical energy management tool when applied to your daily routine. The question shifts from, "How can I get through today?" to, "How would I design this day to make it worth repeating forever?" This single mental reframe has the power to transmute mundane tasks into meaningful rituals and transform exhaustion into purposeful expenditure of energy. When you approach each activity with the consciousness that this moment contains eternal significance, the quality of your attention deepens and your energy follows this focus. Most people operate on what could be called temporary consciousness-making decisions based on short-term comfort or immediate gratification without considering the long-term energy implications. The practice of eternal recurrence thinking rewires this approach by forcing you to evaluate every action through the lens of infinite return. That extra hour of scrolling that leaves you drained and restless, would you choose to experience that depletion eternally? The difficult conversation you've been avoiding that weighs on your mind, would you prefer to carry that avoidance forever? This perspective reveals the hidden energy costs of our avoidance patterns and illuminates the sustainable power of facing what must be faced. The integration of this philosophy into daily life begins with what I call eternal return rituals. Simple practices designed to be so inherently fulfilling that their repetition becomes a source of joy rather than drain. Your morning routine, work transitions, meal breaks, and evening wind down all become opportunities to create moments worth eternalizing. The key lies not in dramatic changes, but in bringing such profound presence to ordinary activities that they become extraordinary. The way you sip your tea, the attention you give to a colleague's words, the care you take in organizing your workspace. When performed with eternal consciousness, these mundane acts become charged with life force rather than depleting it. This approach ultimately solves the paradox of modern energy management. We seek to conserve our forces while simultaneously wasting them on distractions that provide no nourishment. The practice of evaluating all activities through the lens of eternal recurrence naturally guides you toward energy investments that yield infinite returns. Those actions that strengthen your character, deepen your relationships, and express your authentic purpose. The weariness that comes from such purposeful living is qualitatively different from burnout. It is the satisfying fatigue of the athlete who has pushed their limits in service of growth, not the exhausted depletion of the office worker who has sacrificed their soul for a paycheck. As you internalize this framework, you begin to naturally gravitate toward people, projects, and practices that you would gladly welcome into your eternal recurrence. Your energy follows this alignment, flowing toward what truly matters with increasing intensity and sustainability. The final mastery occurs when you no longer need to consciously ask the eternal recurrence question, because your life has organically organized itself around activities and relationships so meaningful that their endless repetition would be a gift rather than a burden. In this state, energy management becomes unnecessary because you are living in such fundamental alignment with your nature that vitality becomes your default state.